Ladies and gentlemen, a very warm welcome to all of you on the fifth day of the India Impact Investing Week. This is Ramraj Pai, the Chief Executive Officer of the IIC. I must say that the feedback to the event remains unprecedented and continues on the fifth day. We have had 850 plus registrations for the event, including 50 plus registrations that have come in just for the last day over the last 10 to 12 hours. We've had some excellent sessions, I must admit. The session on day one started off with a broad overview of global and domestic impact investing trends. The last 3 days got into a deep dive into specific sectors like agriculture, financial inclusion, education, and livelihoods. We've had some stellar sessions on debt financing and impact. We released a report in collaboration with Bridgespan on debt financing. And also, we've got a great session yesterday on impact measurement and management, where again, IIC published its third research report in collaboration with KPMG. Today is our fifth day, and I must say we have another interesting set of discussions coming up. We've got one sector deep dive, which is into health, and the other one is a masterclass on impact measurement and management, more specifically on Iris Plus in collaboration with Jin, who are also our supporters for the event. The last session, though, is possibly our most interesting one, which is an exciting discussion on a rapidly emerging segment in the Indian impact sector, which is loosely called tech for good. This is a session which is cross-cutting across sectors and really explores two key facets. One, how can technology be redesigned and redeveloped to serve low-income populations? And two, how do we build a more robust deep tech and IP-based culture to create truly breakthrough solutions for our countrymen and women? Possibly, this is the most awaited session for the day and for the event. And we hope that this is as exciting and as interesting as we all hope it to turn out to be. We'll finally end with the closing ceremony, which will be at 8:15 p.m. Indian Standard Time. Ladies and gentlemen, it's now my pleasure and privilege to introduce to you our keynote speaker for the day, Amit Bori, founder and CEO Jin. Amit Bori is the Chief Executive Officer and co-founder of the Jin, where he heads the largest global community of impact investors dedicated to increasing the scale and effectiveness of impact investing. Amit co-founded the Jin in 2009, following the launch of the Monitor Institute's Investing for Social and Environmental Impact, a landmark report which he helped to conceive and develop. His work would eventually lead to the growth of a global network around the concept of impact investing and provide a blueprint that would seed the Jin's creation. Today, Amit dedicates his work to engaging industry leaders, institutional investors, foundations, and leading financial institutions all over the world to advocate for greater integration of social and environmental factors in all investment decisions and to develop the tools and resources needed to effectively mobilize more capital towards impact investments. Amit has authored many articles and has been frequently featured in leading publications such as Financial Times, The Economist, Al Jazeera, New York Times, Wall Street Journal, Bloomberg, Fast Company. I can go on and on. He's also a much sought after speaker at events worldwide. Amit has significant experience in both the for-profit and not-for-profit sectors and has previously held positions at Bain & Company, Elizabeth Glaser Pediatrics AIDS Foundation, and within the corporate philanthropy units of Gap and Johnson & Johnson. Amit holds an MBA from Northwestern University's Kellogg School of Management, an MPA from Harvard University's John F. Kennedy School of Government, and a BA in Sociology and Anthropology from Swarthmore College. Amit lives in Brooklyn with his wife and their daughter, who inspire his life's work to building a more sustainable and equitable future for all. Ladies and gentlemen, Amit Bori for you. Over to you, Amit.
Thank you so much. And good evening for those of you in India, and good afternoon and good morning for those of you joining from around the world. I'm sorry we can't be there together in person, but I'm so excited to be with you, even in this virtual setting. Our new normal in the COVID era. The pandemic has forced these unfamiliar norms on our entire world. It has disrupted the ways we convene gatherings like this one, the ways we work with colleagues and partners around the globe, and even the ways we interact with the loved ones closest to us. But as you are witnessing along with me, the pandemic is doing far more than even that. It is laying bare our deepest inequities, and it is exacerbating our most troubling trends. It is highlighting the urgent need for fundamental change, for systemic shift, for a transition that opens to a very different future. At the Global Impact Investing Network, we are squarely focused on building toward that future. Much of my recent work has been focused on tackling the 3 stages of the challenge before us. First, of course, we're working to respond by addressing the immediate moment of crisis. Second, we're aiming to recover and build back stronger by leaning into this moment of opportunity. And ultimately, we are striving to become more resilient, to build more resilient economies through unprecedented collaboration and truly fresh approaches. It is a tall order, but today, I'm more convinced than ever that impact investors can help lead the way into our next normal, a new status quo that thinks about investment capital in an entirely new way, a shifted paradigm that honors the role of all stakeholders, from workers to the planet itself. Even now, 7 months after health officials first declared coronavirus a pandemic, the global community is struggling to get firmly ahead of this virus and struggling to fully comprehend its vast human and economic toll. That toll, of course, is changing every day. More than 1 million lives have been lost worldwide so far. Tens of millions more have been sickened. And we've seen a historic contraction of global per capita incomes. That toll is profound and deeply troubling. For many of us, it is being felt in deeply personal ways. But tragically, the ripple effects of this crisis are even broader. The pandemic is exacerbating many of our most troubling global trends. These are trends which had already gained a foothold long before the first outbreaks appeared. Our global inequality crisis is growing even more dire because of the uneven ways the pandemic impacts rich and poor. Insufficient progress toward achieving the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals is now being exacerbated, and financial volatility has spiked to extreme levels. Meanwhile, the climate crisis is threatening lives in other ways. Not a single major developed economy is on track to meet its commitments in the Paris Climate Accord, even as 2020 will likely go down as the warmest year on record globally. Amidst all this, we're also facing a crisis of distrust in both business and government, the very leaders we need to lead us toward health and progress. As this pandemic-infused crisis looms on so many fronts, we clearly need a broad-based response across governments, civil society, and the private sector. And the impact investing community must rise to the occasion and play its critical role by working together and collaborating in new ways. Already, our industry is responding by doing what it does best. The Response, Recovery, and Resilience Investment Coalition, launched in May, is streamlining impact investing efforts to address the large-scale social and economic consequences of COVID-19. R3, as we're calling it, is a fast-moving effort across prominent impact investing networks, managed by the GIN as the organizing body and supported by leading foundations. And we're grateful to the collaboration and partnership we have with IIC, of course. R3 acknowledges the urgency of this moment, the collective potential of our networks, and the need to share our best resources and ideas for the common good. It highlights impact investors' willingness to be adaptive and innovative, not only in the investments they make, but as a community. In this time of daunting challenge, we must admit the limits of what we can accomplish alone, and instead lean into that communal strength. But as the R3 name suggests, response is only the first and most immediate stage. Even in this moment of crisis, we must work toward the recovery and resilience that must come next. This moment of collective crisis, tragic as it continues to be, is also revealing a moment of collective opportunity. If crisis exacerbates our most troubling trends, it must also carry the potential to amplify our most encouraging trends. I'm convinced that we can recover. We can build back stronger, greener, and more diverse by leaning into that opportunity. At its essence, impact investing is focused on leveraging capital to achieve goals beyond just financial return. to create positive change for our communities, our planet, and its people. Clearly, that approach must be front and center as we recover. Let's look for a moment at the size of this global industry and the direction it's headed to better understand the opportunity before us. The GIN's 2020 Annual Impact Investor Survey is our 10th yearly assessment of the state of the market and its most important trends. The newest report shows an industry that is growing in both size and sophistication. Our research team estimates that there are now at least 715 billion US dollars in assets under management across the global impact investing market. And nearly 2/3 of our respondents tell us that they seek risk-adjusted market rate returns for their assets, and 90% of respondents are achieving their financial objectives. But few investors are working in this industry for its financial performance alone. At the GIN, we are keenly focused on impact performance. We are raising the bar on the real-world outcomes of impact investing. The industry is showing signs of coalescing around consistent approaches to impact measurement and management, embodied in the GIN's Iris Plus system. At the GIN, we feel strongly that a keen focus on impact performance is central to addressing concerns about impact washing. We also know that impact measurement alone is not enough. Impact investors and their teams must be intentionally and actively managing toward the impacts they seek. Clearly, the recovery-related opportunity is ripe in impact investing. But there are also signs of tremendous promise in the world around us. Signs that our recovery can be built back stronger. The European Union's taxonomy for sustainable development is a long-awaited milestone in the sustainable finance market, giving concrete shape to impact aspirations and impact claims. Titans of industry, from global CEOs to many of the world's billionaires, are advocating for a fundamental change to our economic system. And more retail investors are holding companies to account for their environmental, social, and governance responsibilities with new vigor and urgency. All this evidence points to a shifting social mandate. People are expecting so much more from companies. They want businesses to treat workers fairly, to value diversity and inclusion, and to help the broader community prosper, and to sustain a healthy planet. Our world has awakened to the reality that money can do so much more than just make more money. And in fact, it must. Our recovery from this moment of crisis must be shaped by that principle. But even as we work to build back stronger and recover, we must also be focused on how we build forward toward that very different future I mentioned. If we truly wish to move toward a more resilient future, we must think and act even bolder. We must collaborate as never before. After all, the coronavirus pandemic has highlighted our global interconnectedness and interdependence. That expansive web of human connection is, of course, how the virus moved around the world. But ironically, those same global links are also the solution. Our interconnectedness and interdependence allow us to powerfully confront this threat and build toward new strength. Now more than ever, the world requires collaboration to address its most pressing global problems. These are problems such as climate change and inequality that, just like COVID, transcend our international borders. So our industry must work together. And with R3, that work has begun. But I also believe that R3 can be a model for resilience-focused collaboration far beyond impact investing. It is just one example of how diverse organizations can work in a unified way, from philanthropy and NGOs to governments to big business. If we are going to move forward toward a more resilient future, this time of global crisis truly requires a united global effort. I know that you've been hearing me and many others talk a lot about this time in history as a moment of crisis. But I think there's one crisis we're not talking about enough, and that is a crisis of imagination. Too many of us are still thinking too small. Our creativity is still too dampened by the dominant sense of constraint. But the pandemic and the many crises that it inflames present an unprecedented opportunity for lasting change. In the words of author and political activist Arundhati Roy, published in the Financial Times recently, the pandemic is, quote, a portal, a gateway between one world and the next. It offers us a chance to rethink the doomsday machine we've built for ourselves, she says. Nothing could be worse than a return to normality. Roy is absolutely right. So I'd like to add a fourth R word to our list, reimagine. Yes, we need to respond to the immediate crisis. Yes, we must aim to recover by building back stronger. And yes, we must be striving for that more resilient future. But to get there, we must reimagine. We need to truly open ourselves, our mindsets and our approaches to how different our next normal could be. We need to truly picture what a more inclusive, more sustainable world would look like and feel like. At the Gin, we envision a future when impact is integrated into investment decisions as the normal way of doing things. Impact investments will be a viable option for every investor, from retail to institutional. Businesses and investors will hold themselves accountable to multiple sets of stakeholders, including not just shareholders, but also workers, customers, suppliers, communities, and our environment. The outdated concept of externalities will be relegated to history, with finance theory accounting for risk, return, and impact. In this way, our reimagination of the future goes well beyond impact investing to all of investing, and indeed to the economic system as a whole. Over the past year, we at the Gin have been thinking about our role in shaping a new capitalism. Our focus is on how we better collaborate to drive systemic progress. We've launched a new podcast called Next Normal, with the goal of giving shape to that path forward by interviewing leading luminaries and those who challenge our thinking. Even more recently, many of you may be seeing imagery and messaging connected to the Imperative 21 Reset campaign, pushing for a reset to capitalism on the pages of major newspapers, on the tickers of global stock exchanges, and across social media. All these efforts are working in symphony, aiming to chart the role of businesses and investors in moving to a more just, inclusive, and sustainable economy. They're striving to convene the conversations and to align the action that will move us toward that reimagined world we're all seeking. The impact investing community has made tremendous progress over the past decade. We have so much to be proud of. And yet, from almost any vantage point, it's also clear that many global challenges have become only more pressing. It is impossible to overstate the urgency of the problems we face. But I also believe that impact investing proves that fragments of our reimagined future are already showing up here, in the present. The work of this industry is evidence that the future is already happening all around us. And I'm convinced that our community can help lead the way toward the more inclusive, more sustainable, more just world that so many imagine. That we can build for tomorrow the next normal we're envisioning today. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Amit, for what I would think was an excellent perspective and a great starting keynote for our final day of the event. I think, we've been, partners with Gin on the R-Cubed response, recovery, resilience movement. And it's really, really inspiring for you to have today spoken about the fourth dimension, which I think is so important now that one looks at it, is about reimagination. I think the reimagination of capitalism to figure out how is it that we can think about capitalism, as you very beautifully put it, not merely in terms of risk and return, but in terms of risk, return, and impact. So thank you so much, Amit.
Thank you
for your wonderful keynote. I think this sets us up very, very nicely for the rest of the day. So we look forward to staying in touch, Amit. And thank you once again, for your presence, for your time, and for your encouragement for all our efforts. Ladies and gentlemen, we are now in the process of starting 2 parallel sessions. If you are in Audi 1, we will continue with our roundtable on health. In Audi 2, we will also be starting the Iris Plus Masterclass. These will be 2 parallel sessions that we will be running, so you can make a choice which particular session that you would like to attend. Over to you, the IIC coordinators for these 2 sessions. And thank you once again very, very much, Amit, for all your time and support.
Thank you so much for your leadership and your partnership.